So let's get to some information right off the bat. I asked somebody had messaged me and they said, "What is the deal with Cody Rhodes?" And I said, "That'll be the first question I ask, and I'll find out." I'm trying to find the guy's name just to give him some credit. Pro Wrestling Overtime. That's who asked. So yes. What is the word with Cody Rhodes? I said, I haven't talked to you about it. It'll be the first thing I ask. A lot of people think it's BS. Bully Ray thinks it's BS. And I saw someone say, here's some information that makes me think it is. And they circled like the time and date that all those things were posted, which to me, that doesn't show anything other than they coordinated. All right, AEW, you could release your statement and we'll release our statement. So they all did it at the same time. They were a minute apart or whatever. So, do you think this is a work? Because it does seem, it is one of those odd things. But when you hear, quote unquote, hear from sources that WWE is interested and want to have him, unless that's completely made up, then you would think it would be true.
Yeah, it's not completely made up. The WWE are interested in bringing him in. There's actually ideas in terms of how they would bring him in as well.
I'm guessing day after WrestleMania if it did happen.
Yeah, I would think that would be something that reboots the day after WrestleMania. But we knew this contract was coming up, and once they start to mention it on TV, the assumption is that it would get resolved. But WWE, and I didn't even bother doing it as a story because I did the Moxley one, which people will forget about when it happens. But I did the.
You never said anything.
Yeah, I did the Moxley one because I felt like that one had a greater chance of happening. He doesn't have that business relationship with AEW. He has an expensive contract. He has friends in WWE. They've already made an active offer to him to come back and do like a cameo whilst under the AEW contract. But it was a case of, we'll let Jericho go there, but we don't want to let Moxley go there. So the fact that all this stuff was already happening means that Moxley was worth talking about. With Cody, I think the assumption was the same as everybody, that it was going to happen. Now, the thing with the statement, WWE knew, and I knew the day before, that the statement was going to come out at that time. And that's not anything to do with it being a work, because Twitter allows you to post the tweet at a certain time, the same way that Patreon allows you to put up a post at a certain time. And when you choose 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, it never goes out on time. Like, it never goes out on the dot. It basically goes out approximately within 10 minutes of that time. But I don't know if it's a case of so many tweets are going out at that time, or whether it's, where people are using that facility in that way. But yeah, I mean, it's the same on Patreon as well. Whenever I set a post to come out at like 12 o'clock or anything on the hour, it's always like 1 minute past, 2 minute past. And that includes like when you're going for your 30s, like, 10, 20, 10, 10, 30, 11, 30, whatever. So I wouldn't read anything into that at all. I mean, it could have been coordinated for them to all do it at 10. And they just was like, we need to send our tweet now, and just took them a couple of minutes to get set up. I don't know. I wasn't there, but like, I do know it doesn't mean anything, because I do know the true story is that they're expecting to come in, because you can't work within this company. It's not the type of company that are going to work everybody else there. Like, Tony Khan's not the type of person who's going to work his own people. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, with WWE, it would be a case of, if they're used in this way to enhance a television story or whatnot, then he would never be able to go back there. And he still has a relationship with them where they do like the Dusty Cup, and he's paid like Dusty Rhodes' like royalties, etc. And yeah, there's never been like a major falling out at all.
It seems like it though, when he comes out there with the shovel stuff, and he constantly takes shots, it seems.
But what have the shots been other than
more at Triple H, I guess?
I don't think Triple H was responsible for creating Stardust or anything like that. So I don't know.
And you got to give him credit. He took that Stardust as bad as it could have been. He put all he had into it. He didn't just crawl into a hole and go, I have to do this. That he went for it. And, you know, it was fine for what it was. I mean, it was what it was. I enjoyed dashing Dusty Rhodes or dashing Cody Rhodes, to tell you the truth. But
yeah, I mean, he's not going to be any of those two. He's going to be a straight up character. The thing is that it's a confusing one within the household, because my understanding is that she had a role there. She was popular with talent, more popular than him, and she wanted to stay there. He's genuinely, what my understanding is, the way that he's looked upon by the television audience. Whereas, I mean, you could say it's 50-50. It's not. It's got to the point where it's 75% of people don't like him or want him to turn heel or whatever it is. It's the same way backstage, where there's certain people that like him. If you remember a few years ago with the story about how he treated a runner like really badly, an employee really badly, and he came out and spoke about it, and how he said, like, you couldn't make eye contact with Cody Rhodes. And he was a real to everyone. And yeah, that there's stuff like that around, where there are half the people that are really cool with him, there are half the people that like him. He hasn't had a say over creative, and the same goes for the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega originally had a big say over the direction of the women's division, and was going to be in charge of training them and booking them and laying out matches, etc. And everybody's roles out of that quartet has kind of dwindled over the last couple of years as Tony's done it more. And that's not really what Cody wanted to do. I mean, if you even look as much as this, I don't know what the long-term booking of him not winning or challenging for the world title, but the long-term booking normally of not being able to challenge for the world title is finding a way to challenge for the world title and winning.
Yeah, it's like retirement stuff with Macho trying to come back.
Yeah, so I don't know if that ended up being a thing where they just said, all right, so we'll just stick with this, and never got around to creating that story arc. But just all in all, without speculating and saying maybe it's this, maybe it's that, the thing that I know is that he has left. They thought he was going to sign up until the end. They even, especially Brandy, was set up with a story with Paige Van Zandt. Cody wasn't involved in that. So Cody was more hesitant and less likely to sign, and it looked a little bit like there would be a period where he would maybe be off television after losing the belt to Sammy Guevara. But it looked like a period where he maybe take some time off to negotiate this and settle on what he had to do. But there was no plan to take Brandy off TV. But I think with this whole announcement, I think hit the fan completely, and they decided they were both going to go, because it was her that was staying on TV. It was him that was working without a contract, actually for a few weeks. That contract hasn't run out when the statement was made. That contract ran out a little bit before that. So I think for that to come out is the final thing that says this isn't going to get sorted out. And I think with the WWE being interested, and Vince actually having a story with it, and I'm talking Vince, like, I'm not talking like Bruce Pritchard's made a pitch, or Michael Hayes has made a pitch, or Ryan Ward, or Shane McMahon, or Triple H, or anybody. Like, Vince McMahon has an idea. So that's going to lead to him coming in, I believe.
You know what this idea is?
No one does.
It's hard to buy that they would push him as like a major contender, other than let's change the IC title back to the way it used to look. I mean, he's going to go against Roman. We're going to supposed to believe that?
I think
he'll be hated too when he comes back.
When you hear there's an idea and it leads to Cody Rhodes coming in, it's not a gimmick. It's not Stardust or anything like that.
Sure, it's going to be Cody Rhodes, I'm sure.
It's Cody Rhodes, and it's the freedom to be the Cody Rhodes he wants to be, which I believe. So I don't know if this is the idea, but I've heard from somebody who I can't say who is, that there was an issue with him not turning heel, because he told Tony Khan that he didn't want to do it. Now, the internal belief is that the reason Cody Rhodes didn't want to turn heel is because everything he had to do and say as part of that turn, he wanted to save and keep fresh to move over to the WWE because he knew for some time that he wasn't going to renew that deal and that he was ready to go. I was told that the whole role model thing is, they said he's not John Cena. He actually doesn't even really believe that he's John Cena. And that the real reason behind this is that he doesn't want to waste any of the material that he has when he can do it all in WWE. So I think this could be a character that says, you fired me and now I'm back to take out the people that you love kind of thing. I think it could be the outsider coming in, which would explain why he didn't turn heel. Because if you turn heel there and you're 2 months into it and then you really want to leave, what is it you're bringing over? I mean, there's one philosophy that says to me, okay, get real hot like Pillman and then leave for more money so they can actually, sample what you're going to do. But as I said, this is not a 100% fact. This is somebody who knows him and who works for WWE who told me this is probably what he's doing.
My prediction is obviously, like I said, day after WrestleMania, he comes back, and I think he's going to do a Jeff Jarrett, but in a better way, and get the microphone, be smiley, and then turn it heelish where he pipe bombs, as everyone says, and tells what happened and why he left and, how they kept him down and really just, tell truths, but, as they know it's coming, but they're still the truth. That's my thought.
I mean, one thing I will say is that the guy is able to talk and he can cut a better promo than most of the people in WWE. The problem is that when he had the license to book for himself, we saw that said promo and that said program over and over again, which was him getting into a very personal feud where he would cut long monologues and he would lose and then he would end up winning and he would end up bleeding. And we saw that time and time again. He didn't actually get a loss against Anthony Ogogo, but that was the same thing where he became Mr. Patriotic. He
was at war with England.
Yeah, he became the guy that the first ever guy to have a mixed race child. He united black and white worldwide. He tried to take credit for that. He had that win. He had that program with Brody Lee, where people turn around and said Brody Lee was the greatest TNT champion of all time just because he had it for a month or so.
I was to say because there was only 3 of them or whatever.
Yeah, but then he also had that same program with MJF where MJF turned on him and when he lost to Jericho as well. So we've seen that. We've seen him lose and then chase revenge in programs, and it seems to be the only thing that he could do. And it's always cutting long promos about how personal it is to him and how personal it's become. And I think he needs to step away from the part where he is in charge of coming up with ideas and reasons as to why he should be wrestling people. I mean, WWE would do that for you. They're terrible. They just throw out matches for no reason. So there needs to be a little bit more reason there. But I always see sort of Cody Rhodes as the poor man's version of Edge, whereas Edge comes in there, he's thrust into programs with people, but in his promos, he always makes it make sense. But even Edge can get to the point where in this current WWE climate, he can be repetitive, where he's always in a program where, okay, you're working with Seth Rollins. Okay, now you're working with The Miz. And he has to find his own ways to make it really personal, to make it a program that somebody will care about. And that's always the handicap that they give Edge. And it's I don't know if Cody had that handicap in AEW where they said, hey, you're going to work with MJF. You're going to work with Brody Lee. You're going to work with Anthony Ogogo. You're going to work with Andrade, Malachi Black. And you need to find ways to make it interesting. And the only thing he could come up with was the same stuff every time. But anyway, I think just to get off this, I think he is coming in. That's my understanding.